Let's bring in national security and military analyst Dr. Rebecca Grant. Always good to have you, Dr. Grant. And if you would allow me, I'm going to start by throwing out a bundle of questions. So here we go. All right. Is there bite to Iran's bark? What's the worst thing that could happen if Tehran pulls out of the nuclear deal? Can they pull it off? And how big of a threat is an untethered Iran?
Well, what a great set of questions. So first of all, there are two layers here. One is really important. Iran is actually threatening to pull out not just from the bilateral, multilateral nuclear deal, but from the big UN non-proliferation treaty. They have threatened this before, but this would be a hugely stupid move. They had to sign this to get some nuclear production many, many years ago. But if they do that, that's a clear sign to the whole world that they are planning on building nuclear weapons. So yes, I think I'm hearing a little bark in that bluster this time.
And let's talk about what got us here. Just you know this, but for folks watching and listening. So earlier this month, the United States blacklisted Iran's elite revolutionary guards, which is the IRGC, and demanded that buyers of Iranian oil stop purchases by May, which is coming up, or face sanctions. So that is why Iran is threatening to pull out of the nuclear deal. So here we go, Dr. Grant. If they do pull out, which countries are standing by to continue to do business with Iran, and what kind of leverage over the United States would that provide them, if any?
Really hard to say at this point, but you're right, Arthel, the May 1st deadline is the critical one. There have been waivers, and the point here is that the Trump administration is saying, okay, we're not going to waiver anybody buying Iranian oil. That includes China and many, many others. So Iran is completely desperate. You could hear the desperation in that package and what they're saying at this point. Now, the European companies have started pulling out. Maersk, the Danish shipper, Renault, Peugeot, everyone. They started to pull out their business from Iran many months ago. So right now, Iran is really running the risk of losing all the rest of the people it does business with. Trump's goal, zero oil exports, and that will bottle up Iran's mischief in the region. That's the policy that we're aiming for.
And the reason why I threw that out there, because I know Russia and China, they're part of the 2015 deal, but you know, you never know how they're going to react to certain things. They don't always follow the rules, treaty or no treaty. So how would ending the waivers for a country, the waivers for the countries buying oil from Iran and restoring those sanctions on Iran affect stability in the region? Also, relationships with our allies like Germany, Britain, France. I mean, those countries, they don't want to upset the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz, which again, for our viewers, is an international waterway for which Iran's elite revolutionary guards, we mentioned earlier, they provide security for the Strait of Hormuz.
Right, and so they have threatened many times to try to close the Strait of Hormuz. They're actually stopping just short of making that blustery threat this time. But our military forces there and our U.S. Navy have more than the ability to keep that strait open. Iran is just not that good in the Navy. They are not really able to close that strait down. And again, it would be another stupid move. I mean, they are about as subtle as a cement mixer. They're terrible diplomats. They could trade and do business and be part of international agreements. But every move, including all the bluster and the attacks we heard this morning, really go in the opposite direction. They're showing that they're not trustworthy, that they are aggressive, that they are the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, and that European allies and others are foolish to try to trade with them. Nothing will change them. And I think this is the Trump administration's point of view. We need to put maximum pressure on Iran and try to bottle up their influence and get them back on track.
And do you think that'll happen soon? I have just a really short answer for me.
I think it's going to take some time, but I think this tough sanctions policy is important. And let's see the reaction from other big players, China, Russia, our European allies. And let's see Iran's Navy a little more bottled up in the Strait of Hormuz.
Dr. Rebecca Grant, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, guess who called into Fox News this morning? President Trump, sounding off on the crisis at the border. What he said when we come back.